the vineyard. We were living in the very heart of one of the best areas of vineyards in the whole of Europe. The Brunello wine of Montalcino, produced just outside our door in the monastery and in the whole area, was very expensive and of great quality, and we had to go around as priests now and again to bless what they were up to, because in Italy one is very much involved with the people, and one goes into these vaults with a huge vessels, massive things containing very expensive wine. And also we were given some regularly for the altar. And the care that went into those vineyards was something else. Order, perfect order, hours of sweat and labour, and it produced the maximum. And one thinks, does one give the same care to what really matters, the soul? It is true that one was blessing their livelihood and it was very important for them, but do we actually really care for the whole point of existence? For all that we do on the material is in view of the immaterial, which will go on for all eternity. And what is the point if the vineyard is working and we care not for the vineyard of our soul? In practice, that is concrete. Traditionally, there is a discipline within Catholic life, going back centuries and centuries, of regular confession. When I was a young Catholic, there were queues still before the confession boxes in our big parish. One had to wait to go into the box. That was on a Saturday, not a Sunday. And every day of the week also there were confessions. And it was part and parcel of life. Preparing for the Sunday was an event. And I remember the joy of, on a Saturday evening, way before the vigil mass came in, it was an important time of getting ready for the grace of the Sunday. And coming actually from the Free Church atmosphere of Wales, that carried on as a Catholic, because as young water boys we were given sometimes not only the High Mass to help us, but also another Mass. There were so many Masses over the weekend, and therefore we were in the house of the Lord, and it was a natural place to receive grace, but also to reflect, and time for reflection. One saw the monks actually giving example. They got up very early. There were 6 monks in our parish, sometimes 7, from Ampleforth and Buckfast, and they would start off very early with prayer. You would see them with their hoods up in choir, and they would also make thanksgiving after Holy Mass. It was an example. There was peace there, and they knew what they were transmitting. They were meeting the one they were transmitting, and it was a message. And the house of the Lord was truly a place of the Lord, where it was orientated towards the divine, very different actually from where I was coming from. The house of the Lord was inhabited by angels, by the Lord of angels, and also by those who were serving him, because the house was next to the church and linked thereto. With regard to, therefore, the care, the life of a Catholic should be regular and should have these spaces. And if they're not there, he's not ready, he's not taking care. And in practice, it's become very difficult to do that, because if one looks around, one sees a new pattern which has emerged in the last 20 years, really, since the invention of new gadgets which have pervaded our whole life. I mean, the whole atmosphere of virtual reality. It was not at all there in those early years, and one was free on a Sunday to read. It was a quiet time with the Bible and with prayer. We are hugely damaged, and although we might be interested in the things of the Lord in these new media, learning a lot in a short time, we're looking at these and not at Jesus. And without realizing, we're not taking the same care of the interior, because these bits of communication are of little worth for eternity if they damage the encounter with Jesus, which is actually what is happening if we're honest. The proportion of time, even on the day of the Lord, which he has asked for himself, is not what it should be. It is far better still to be able to take a calm book and look at it and pause and read without being bombarded with heavy messages all the time which damage the soul and take away its inner peace. We're not made for that. The brain can't take it. And that also is linked with the reading from the Philippians, where Paul insists on the nature of the peace of the Lord which surpasses all understanding. Where is that peace of the Lord which surpasses all understanding if we're hyped up by syllables and messages that we can't handle? I remember being moved way back in school days by a book that my Sunday school teacher way back had given me to read about the Eastern Orthodox Church. And he also took us to the Eastern Orthodox liturgy one Sunday morning to experience it, and it was something else. 3 hours long and utter silence, and that's what entering into eternity can mean, bathed in incense and chant, and otherness and holiness and majesty behind the holy doors. Wow, I thought to myself, this is a lesson. Well, he gave me this book, and in it were things like the history of one of their great saints, Seraphim of Sarov, and I was very hit by one passage in it, where this saint, towards the end of the 1800s, was in prayer and praying all night, and a friend of his was with him, and he saw how towards dawn Seraphim changed visually his face and went into ecstatic mode, and he was somehow caught up with it. And in that mode, Seraphim turned to his friend and said to him, "What do you feel?" And he said, "I feel a profound peace, an unspeakable well-being." And Seraphim replied to him, "This is the peace of which the Lord spoke." And remember, the Lord himself did warn that the world knew nothing of it. So the more we have to do with the world, the more we are in danger of knowing nothing of it. We have to choose who we spend our time with, because we also take in their negativity and even their demons if we're not careful. We don't have to be all the time with people who are far away from God. We have them if the Lord sends them, but we can't choose them as intimate friends. The vineyard of the Lord one day jumped out of the page when there was a priest called Father Stephen in America celebrating this Sunday, because this is the one in the 3-year cycle that it comes up, this passage. He had almost forgotten about the experience, and he was celebrating Holy Mass that Sunday morning, and the words that he was reading that we have just read now jumped out of the page, and he was taken back to what had happened some years previously. He had had a terrible, terrible accident, and he was clinically dead. And he was taken into the beyond, and he was hearing the judgment pronounced upon him, because he wasn't ready, and he wasn't at all well orientated at that point. And he was given to understand that what had been given him was not being cared for. Hence this gospel, which he was given to understand for what it was, the care of the soul and the grace given to the soul. And he was given to understand that in the state that he was in at that point, he wasn't going to make it on the other side. And there he was, agreeing to what he was hearing, and he was saying in his testimony, all that one can say before ultimate truth is yes. There are no loud protestations against the ultimate truth. One sees it, and Jesus is the truth. And so his sentence is the final word, the Alpha and the Omega, the last point, the last court of appeal. And he was hearing his sentence coming, but before it was pronounced, this female voice came in out of nowhere. "My son, give him one more chance." And the son was answering, "He has neglected the grace, and he has been a priest for himself and not for me. It is no use, any more grace wasted." And she pleaded one more time, "He is mine, give him to me." And because the son could not refuse anything to the mother, he simply said, "Mother, he is yours." And he came back to life, was given a new charge, miraculously brought to life, although he was clinically dead, and he made a U-turn and is still alive and gives his testimony where he goes. And it is a lesson also not only for priests, but for all to receive the grace of God. It must be tended, not abused. And I remember hearing this information in France, that what brought down Henry VIII was the abuse of grace. And it showed how it happened. Even when he had Anne Boleyn already, before being in any way married to her, she was pregnant and he was still going to the sacraments and so on. And the conclusion was the problem there, which of course brought England into grief forevermore, was the abuse of grace. The abuse of grace.